So to get started on drawing a country or a farm, I have some parts just sketched out. So this is how you'd start your basic house, but it would also be a barn. So here I added a more complex part to adding the sides of it. Here is from a different angle. Then you could always add your different types of fence, your big sign for your farm or your ranch, your roadway to your 1-point vanishing point, and then you have your tractor, which I did the basic shapes for a side view of it. So on these drawings that I've done, I've just traced over them with the basic shapes so you would understand how you can add parts to them. Here for it could be a covered bridge, or later on if you made it smaller, it could be a doghouse. You would start just like a regular house with your square or rectangle. Then you put a triangle on it, but make sure the triangle hangs over, because you always have that hangover for your roof for when the rain would fall off of it. And this way it's not going straight into the side of the building. That would be the overhang that you always need on all your roofs. Further back, I have another house. It'd be a 2-story house that you could add. And then the triangle once again is laid over the top of it. For a barn, it's the same way. I made this more of a little bit of a rectangle, and then added a tall rectangle here, did a half triangle or a right triangle this way. Then you could add just either a straight triangle or build up on your shapes for whichever type of roof that you would like, and then maybe you have the opening of where the hay would go in and have that be a rectangle or a square also, and then your barn doors. Everything is going to go back to a 1-point vanishing point. As you can see, we have different type of fencing. You could do a square, a circular. It could be where it's just old posts that have, you know, changed directions as it's gone. Start your basic trees. And then for if you were doing a covered bridge, you would draw all the sidings and the shingles just like you would for a house, and then you would put water underneath of it. But make sure that goes inwards just a little bit and not right out to the very edge, because you need land that would be supporting your bridge. And you could even draw in some posts and stuff. Add a sign maybe saying what town you're entering, or the clearance, what the name of the river is. Here is another one that I've started, and this one I started shading so you could see where this is eventually going to go. So in this one, you can still see it's that basic shape of your squares and your triangles with all of these. And as I went back further, I was just drawing things in so you could see. But here on this one, it's also showing as if we were driving and then we went down the hill and back up the hill. What you're still going to do with that is line those up to the vanishing point, but then change the direction just a little bit by scooting it over and then adding a curve. That way it's emphasizing the going up and down a hill. And here I would slightly curve it too. When shading, this would then be a little bit darker, and then it would also then get lighter as we would go. And I have a couple more here. This one is just a different angle. So you can see I put the vanishing point all the way over here. Still was doing the details of the shading and putting highlights on it as we would shade. So here you can tell the light source was coming this way, and then the shadow would be on the opposite side. Also, other things to think about when you're doing the siding of your buildings would be putting in the little nail holes that would have the details of the wood, the grain of it. Start adding in, these would all be perfect rectangles when we would be drawing them back. But then what I like doing is tracing around them, just on the 3 edges of them, so they start getting the layering of the shingles put on there. And then add in some little details here and there, add in some highlights, and that way it's adding the texture of if it's a regular shingle or if it's even a wood. Add shadows over and underneath things over here. You'd have some here. For this, what I had done was did a little bit of a wavy line, because as the water has worn this away, it's added more curves to it. The same way with back here. Then on the top one, also add in, like I was saying, light was coming this way, so we have a highlight added in this. But then on that opposite part over here, you want your shadow to be showing. Then always add a few pieces of grass here and there. That way it's also emphasizing and showing the perspective adding to it. So you'd have foreground details, your middle ground, and your background. So for this, it was a wavy line, add a few vertical lines here and there, they could even come up, and then like I said, if light source here, then that opposite side is what is getting your shadow put on it. Then here you would shade, but give it some wavy lines going across, blend it in, and then put in your highlights. If you were wanted to add rocks or something, those would be like your half circles that you could be adding, and then you'd put a wavy line because that would be showing the current of the water going through. And then this does show far distance, so remember things are going to get smaller and smaller in the background. Here's another one I've started. So you could see you could add wildlife to it. I added even another bridge to this with a little waterway, but it's a lot smaller than what it is back here. And then back here, it's even further away, so it's made even smaller, but all these were still your basic shapes of your rectangles and triangles going to the vanishing point over there. And then changing the different types of texture, I was putting in a corn crop or like rows of something. Adding different wavy lines will also add to the dimension of the land going up and down, and then little tiny farm animals far, far in the distance. And then here, if you wanted a different style of bridge, I just started sketching one out so you could see you can have your regular wood siding here, but if you're looking at an older barn, I would still sketch these to the vanishing point, and then I laid out bricks or what could be stones. So if they're bricks, the big mortar ones, they would be having big rectangle blocks or cinder blocks, and then if they were the old stones, I then just traced around it with curves and everything and was adding to it. Add in your different layers to show distance that way. If you're wanting to do a hay bale here, like what I started, I usually go with like more of the cylinder ones, and that would still go back to the vanishing point, but you could do a square one also. I just grew up where I saw the farmers always having the circle bales of hay. Here, the fence post, it's a regular rectangle, and then that goes back to the vanishing point. And then add in the other pieces, add in a few lines for your grass and texture. And then you could also still do where it's at the oval, and then add in your lines of your grass and stuff through there, and then you would shade it in and everything. So it kind of depends on what kind of fence post that you're wanting. What I also have started here is if you have a paper that's a vertical format, I started with the bridge still down here, and this is just showing I have further land going back this way than if it's a horizontal. Here's once again that landline, and then straight lines to show the bank or what would be the dirt. You can depend on how curvy or wavy you want your land to be, but remember everything when we would start it is going to go back to that vanishing point. That's when you then change it up to show the going up and down the hills. And then here is one I started shading so you could see just a slight little bit of how things are going to show between, say, your land and your sky. Your sky would still have values in it when you would be shading later. And then just our simple shapes of depending on what style of buildings that you're doing for your country. So a country farm can still have your house in it because people do live out in the country. It could be, you know, buildings on the outside, like it's all your farm is around it, or it could just be more of, you know, here's one house and here's the neighbor's house, and then on down further is a farm. This way, it's your decision which way you're wanting to go. Are you wanting just where it's more of all the farming buildings, or are you wanting to put houses in this also? So to get started for our country farm, I've started out with my vanishing point in the background towards the top, and I've also started sketching out a few lines like what I had done for the cities and everything. But what you would do is this, we are going to think of it as down at the very bottom of our page is where the road would be that's going across our scene, and then we'll have a road that will be going back this way. So we'll want our ruler, an eraser, and a pencil. So what I'm going to start first is just drawing a horizontal line that's going to go across. So with a straight edge, don't be freehanding this, take the side of the ruler. Remember, this will help make it a straight line by putting the edge up against the edge of the paper and then drawing your line. So I'm going to go across. If you want to have like a little grass, or you could even have like, this is how we were starting our sidewalks. I'm going to do a second little space that's going to go across, and then I'm going to go, say maybe like a pinky space back, because I'm using computer paper size right now. Another line, so I'm doing 3 horizontal lines to get us started. I also started with my vanishing point back here, so this would be where the horizon line is going to be. So the horizon line is where the land and sky are going to meet, and then I would put my dot, and it's about the center of the page, but your vanishing point can always be anywhere on that part. And I'm just going to go over a few different ways to get your picture started. It doesn't have to be in this format, but I do want, say we're going into your own little farm, this could be put as your sign. It's up to you what you're wanting it to say, but you're going to then put a fence. So to start with, I gave us a few vertical lines, and the way I established those was you line your ruler up to the bottom edge of the page, and then you would draw your vertical line. And I'm not going to have it go all the way up to the top. And then what I'm going to do is also then scoot the ruler over just a little bit, because I'm going to draw some poles here. Another one. And then I'm going to come over here and do the same thing. And then over here, just about the same amount of space. And then what I'm going to do is come over here and draw a straight line just in that middle to make the sign. And this way I have the start of where my sign would go. So in doing that, this one I have it where it was curving up and over, but you can see how this is the start of a rectangle. So I did the rectangle first, so then I knew where the center would be and then where to do the curve of it. So if we were just doing a straight square or rectangle, it would be like this, and then there would be the start of your sign. But what you would also want to do is make this go back to your vanishing point to make your poles 3D. You could then from there find where your center is, and then you're going to add in your curve. And I do these with sketchy lines just so it's easier to erase later, and I have better accuracy that way. So then I would do the same with that. So it's, if you're wanting this curved or not, it's up to you. And then obviously you would erase this part and then those. But what we're gonna do is, just to put in our poles, I'm going to go slightly, very little to the vanishing point, and then make another vertical line here. So it's gonna give my sign 3 dimensions now. And then I would do the same thing, lining this up to that one point, and then doing the same with another vertical line. And now I have a 3-dimensional sign. And then later you can add in whatever your name is. I like keeping this halfway point, so you can plan out the spacing of your letters also. So if it's like a 10-letter word, you'd have 5 here and 5 here. If it's, you know, several words, always count the space in between as what would be a letter when you're planning things out, so count that space. when you'd be like, okay, I have this many letters, also count this space. And then to get other things started for whatever type of barn that you're wanting, if you want something like this, remember it's squares and then triangles on top. Brand new barns are usually a perfect straight line, so I would still do that, but if you're wanting to then make it look aged, where it's been weathered and it's sagging just a little bit, you'd put a slight little curve to it. These other parts added on are rectangles or squares with triangles. If you want something like this, I will show you how to do that too, but it's the start of a rectangle here. We go back to the vanishing point, also find halfway, and then from that is where the triangle is drawn. So that's just a little bit different. And then what I was going to do is to just get you started so you could see how to make your road look more like a country road and not a perfectly straight paved road. So to do our road placement, because now we have us driving in here, we're going to go to the vanishing point and draw our line. And I'm just gonna go through the sign so we can see where things are going. A lot of these lines are straight, but later they will be getting erased, or you'll be adding like a little bit of change up to them to make them look more like a country road with grass grown around it and stuff. So this would be the start of where the road would be. So this would be our horizon in the distance. So like some people like putting the sun setting there. If that's your thing, then go for it, but then you'd have a land like straight, maybe a little bit of hills, kind of up to you. So what I had done for here, and I'll just go ahead and do it so you guys can see, is I did a little bit of a wavy line going through here. Then you're going to erase right here and a little bit right on top. Then I like scooting this over, and then this one is going to be just a little bit of curve the opposite way, so it looks like you're driving down the hill and then back up the hill. And that's how you would make hills far in the distance. When you'd start shading it or even coloring it, it's always going to be a little bit darker here, and then as it gets back up towards the top of the hill, that's where it would be lighter again. So let's start with just a few starting of buildings, and then I will start the start of a tractor in there so you can get the idea of how to start the placement of things. So we have here our ranch sign, but what I'm going to have us do is also we need a fence. So I'm going to once again line my ruler up to the edge of the paper, and I'm just going to give us some guidelines. So I'm just going to go straight across because some of these will be getting erased. So this would also help like if you wanted to make a gate that would go in and out of your farm to keep your cattle in. Then you decide what kind of post. Are you wanting them, you know, a newer fence where it has, you know, it's all metal straight across? Or are you wanting just single post? Kind of up to you what you're thinking. So I'll do a couple of different sides of those, and I'll add a few buildings. So to get started, I'll just do I had a black pen. Now I was just going to start these so you could see. I'm just going to line these up, and then say I'll just do a couple different ones, but I'm looking at keeping the spaces. And here, now I'm going to line my ruler up to the bottom edge, draw a straight vertical line, and then scoot it over and draw a second one. This way I have the two sides of the pole here. So let's go ahead and add this last one. Then what I'm going to do is just draw the tops of them. And then this is where you would decide, you know, like, are you going to put others? And they would go straight across here. Usually there's one at the very top, so let's go ahead and put one just a smidge underneath. We'll connect that to the gate. So that's how you would start it. Then these little parts are going to go back to the vanishing point, and then you would also, you could put them in here. That way you could get the concept of what kind of fence that you're wanting. If you're just wanting where it's, you know, more the wire, you could do that. If this was one of the older ones, it'd just be more of a cylinder through here. And then maybe you have the barbed wire that's going to go around. So it's like your different types. But these few I'll take back to the vanishing point so you can see. And these are very small. And then this would be going straight across. And then you would have another line that would be coming down. And what you would also have to take into consideration is how wide are your top ones here. So I'm going to add, and I am freehanding this, but you would add in these little parts right here. So then that's starting to give dimension to your fence. What you would also have is from here, take that back to your vanishing point, and you would, if you had a fence going, I would take it back, say with the vanishing point, just through here, so you could see a whole guideline you would put. So then you have, and I'll just do a few verticals so you can see what size. Oops. You know what I forgot was this other line that's at the bottom right here. So you have like this. Now, pretend that's not there, so that's a no. This is how tall your fence post is now going to be in the back. So it's going to get a lot smaller as it goes further back. So let's just kind of, this would be, say, your grass area. And then these would be your fence. I'll just do the circles. And then your wire would also be going back to the vanishing point. So these would be little ones like that. And as you go back, they'd be getting closer and closer together. So what I had also started here was just so you guys could see once again how to start a couple of the different barns. So what I was going to do is change up with my pencil again, and then do a, let's just do a 1 inch here. Now vertical, because I'm going to make my square. And then this is going to go straight across to here. So now I have the start of something. Here is my halfway. So I'm going to draw a light line of how tall I want my roof pitch to go. So right there, and I'm going to have it hang over just a little bit. So this is where that triangle would be coming into play. So from all of these corners, here, 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 and here, you're going to check to your vanishing point to see if you can make any lines. And if it goes through, then obviously you're not going to draw it. And I'm not going to draw all the way to my vanishing point just because that's more for me to erase later. So this looks like from here to the vanishing point, I could draw a line. Now I'm going to check down here at the bottom. Then I'm going to check here. And that is all going straight through my building, so I'm not going to draw a line. Now I'm going to check this part of the roof, and depending on the placement with the vanishing point, you may have a line, you may not, but this is going to go through the roof, so I'm not going to draw. What I'm going to do is just go ahead and draw a line like that, and add in the thickness of this right now, so you can see where that little bit of an overhang is, just so it's showing up more for you. So now I'm going to take my ruler and decide how far back I want my building, just like when we did houses. So line it up to here so it's parallel with it, and I'm going to slide it back and then draw my line. So now I need a vertical line again, and I'm not going to stop here. I'm going to stop in just a smidge so we have that overhang showing. Vertical line, slide it back to that mark I make, and then draw your vertical line. So now you have the start of your house or your building again. So if you were doing your house, you'd have a whole bunch of siding, and it's all going to be the same for the barn. It's going to be vertical lines nowhere. It's all going to be horizontal lines going this way. No vertical lines right now. I'm going to have these continue what would be horizontal, but they're going back to the vanishing point. So all these edges, I'm going to line up to this edge again and go back to the vanishing point. Line this up and go back to the vanishing point. Remember doing these on the houses, so this way you're getting all of the wood siding to go back. When you're doing your shingles, it's all going to go back to the vanishing point. And I'll just do a few so you can see once again, it's all going back this way. And then this is where you would take your ruler and you would start making your lines, and these are really gigantic shingles, so they wouldn't be this big, but I'm just doing a few so you can see. I would definitely like make these a lot smaller when I was doing them. So that's how you would start those. If you were wanting then to put in a barn door, you know, those are more of a big rectangle, and it would be probably about that size. If you were doing another one, it's a vertical line, and all that would get filled in. So I'm just using the same height, so if you had to drive your vehicles in and out or something. Sometimes you have that top one where you would have like the hayloft, and that would be right there in that area usually. For another part of the barn, if you were wanting it to come off to the side, so maybe it was like a little bit of a stable area, what I would be doing for that one is I usually keep it about the height of this or a little bit higher, and then figure out the pitch of the roof that you're wanting. Remember, that would be your triangle. Have it here, and then it would go straight across, and then you could put in your like the door, not like one where you drive the vehicle in, but like enough for your, you know, you to walk in and out of if it was just your barn. And then I would still check to see from this angle if I would have something drawn to the vanishing point for the roof, and it actually does look like I do, so I would have a little bit of the roof going that way. If I was going to do like where it was a little bit aged, that's where I would, you know, slightly have it curve down just a little bit, but then this would have that sagging area to it too. Then what you could do is, since I have the black pin here, let's say I filled this in and then just did this. So when you're shading it in, I do something like this, and now it's showing, oh, this barn door's open in towards the inside. If you wanted the barn door open towards the outside, it's going to be going out this way. So there's a couple ways to look at it. And then always think you probably have like some type of drive going through here, but it'd be getting smaller as it goes out that way. If you have fence, it would be going back to the vanishing point, and then these would be your vertical lines. Probably you have some animals or something in there. Earlier in one I showed hay bales, so maybe I have a couple and these are just those circle ones. They would go back to your vanishing point and they'd be curved like that. If you wanted more of those square ones, they would go back to the vanishing point, and then you'd add all your hay texture and stuff to it. For this other building I had done that's more like those more modern machine sheds, what I had done was started where it is right here, a square or your rectangle, and I do have it coming off the page, but then that's going to go back to the vanishing point. So I'll get the basis of it started here for us. So it's going to be this part right here. So this one we work a little bit different because the triangle's not going to be on the front. It's going to be over here facing the road. So it's going to be over here. Then what we would do, and it's going to go back, and I'm just going to use my ruler so you can see, to the vanishing point. So I'm going to do the bottom part, and then I'm going to go up here to the top part, line that up to the vanishing point again. So remember, everything always goes to the vanishing point. Then what I'm going to do is another vertical line. It looks like I need to go just a smidge more. Okay, find my halfway, and I'm just going to do it a dotted line so you can see here. To however tall that you're wanting it. Then what you're going to do is connect your corners to make that triangle and go over just a little bit. And now I'm going to do the same thing here. And this would go straight across again. And sometimes if your building looks like it's falling over, maybe you didn't draw a perfect vertical or horizontal line, and that could just add the slightest little tilt to your building and could make it look off sometimes. So now we have that going, and when you're doing pencil, all of this would have been getting erased. But then what we see a lot of times is the corrugated metal. So it's vertical lines on all of this, and then we're using a parallel line to go with the angle of that. So what I'm going to do is, the ones I know are not going to be all the way up here, but about right here, what I'm going to do is make the big door for you to drive in, say, your tractors and stuff. So now we have that. Now I'm going to do a vertical line again. And then you'll come over here and draw another one. Now what I'm going to do is have a horizontal line, just so you can kind of see what I'm doing here. Go out to the side of the building. This one I did go back, so it's like a little walkway behind. Here you could add, let's just do it here. There would be the regular door. And you could add in your sidewalk that way or something. So this would be the garage door part. So what you're going to do is use a different color for you so you can see. This would be vertical, just to get you guys so you can understand where we're going here. This would be your siding with vertical. The front is all vertical now too. And you do a lot more than what I'm doing. I'm just putting some so you can see where to get started. And this would actually have that horizontal line going back right there, because you'd have that little overhang. So all these would be vertical. You could even add in some windows, say maybe for air circulation or your animals. You could even draw like the horse's head sticking out of here or something if you want. Okay, the roof, what I was saying earlier, is not vertical or horizontal lines. What you're going to do is line it up with the roof, and it's going to be parallel. Even people are putting this kind of roof on their houses now in some areas. And then you'd add in more details. I'm just putting this in so you can see where they would be going. Then in some of them they may have like a skylight or something, some windows where you could open them up, but this would be a horizontal. We'll just do every other one. Horizontal. Sometimes you have vents in the top of them too, and there would be your horizontal. So then all this would be, I'm filling it in, but it would be like your windows and that type of stuff, so you could see where we're going that way. Then what I had done on this one was to start a little tiny fence, but what you would do is I'll just lay out the basis of it. So you're going to line up to the vanishing point, and I'm just going to the edge of the buildings right here, and then we'll go back some. Then I'm thinking, okay, how tall is this fence? So here's my door to walk in, so it's probably about right there. So I'm going to line my ruler up to that and the vanishing point. And it would be going that way. So then all these would be our vertical lines for us to make our poles, your fencing. I don't know what kind of it's more newer construction, so the most likely they would be straight, but you'd have them going this way. But see how they're getting smaller in the distance. You could then have it go, these are horizontal again, but if your fence would be going that way, this would be going straight across, and then you'd have a whole bunch of little vertical ones for your fencing, and it's really small because it's far, far in the distance. So up here, we didn't put any fence, but it would be the same kind that would be here. So I'll just sketch some in so you guys can kind of see where I'm going with this. But you'd have your vertical things there, and it would be going this way. So when we would have our road going this way, and I'll change this up with the green again, is it looks all nice in construction, but as we get the grass going and lots of traffic, add like a little bit of a wavy line, and this way it would start showing your grass growing, and then how we have erosion that starts happening on the roadway. And then usually there's, you know, a little bit of where the tire tracks have worn into the road and curved it here. So this is where you would start getting that. And then, you know, you can even have a mailbox or something sticking out that way. So for a tractor to just get it started is a simple shape, and I'm doing very simple, like you can get more into the complex parts. So it starts that way, then you would have your second part is just a simple shape like that. Then you have that going back to the vanishing point, and then this part is going also to your vanishing point. So then you go straight across and another vertical line down. For the cab part, it's your vertical like that and then straight across again. And then you have your tires that you need to think of in different models. The tires are done different ways, but you usually have your really big tractor tire, and this is like overkill, but you're going to draw that like we did our little circle hay bales, and it would be going to the vanishing point, and then you'd have that inside part. Then you have a smaller one but make sure that they're lining up basically, and then that's going back to the vanishing point too, but it's smaller, and then you would maybe be able to see at some part the wheel over there. And then draw in your window, your door, whatever you're needing to add. Some of the smokestack would be like the cylinder part, and that would go back that way too. So those are your simple. If you wanted a trailer or a lowboy wagon, think of those basic shapes. Combine is the same way. So the big simple shapes and then add to them. But just to even do like a little trailer kind of thing, it's your simple rectangle. It's going to go back to the vanishing point. I'd have this part go to the vanishing point also. And then straight across. And then a vertical. And then where are your wheels is what you need to think of. How are the wheels placed? Do you have the metal part where the wheels are both right there, or is something there and there? Are the wheels at the edge? Are the wheels underneath? So start with your circle. There would be my axle. There's my circle. There's my axle. So then that top part would go back to the vanishing point. Just a smidge. So then my wheels would look like this. And I would keep using that also. So then I would know where the other one is. Usually the wheels are not up above this, just letting you know, because then you would be hitting them all the time. Usually there's like a little metal thing that would be going up and over them to help protect. But this would be, as you see, going back to the vanishing point. That way you would then know where the arch of that one is, and you fill it in. Then you could either do, all these would be going to the vanishing point, or you could make them where they're laid out like that. Kind of your choice. And then put this in maybe, you know, how's your wagon getting attached, or your lowboy, those kind of things. So remember, everything starts with your simple shapes of your squares or rectangles, and then triangles. Same way right here, and then we drew that, divided it in half, and then put your triangle back on top of that. So thank you for watching.